Hello, everybody who's joined us here to talk about optimizing your letting agency business. And there is no one else that has been on a journey quite as extraordinary as our James Allen, who is here with us today. Thank you very much, James, for joining us today.
No problem.
So guys, what is it we're here to talk about? Well, we're here to talk about how you can optimize your letting agency. Now, many of you may have already been on this journey. You may have thought about what can I do to increase revenue? You may have looked at the numbers in the dark of night and thought, how can I just squeeze a little bit more revenue? How can I just squeeze a little bit more profit? How can I can remember, many years ago sitting there thinking, oh my God, the VAT bill, the wages, all those sort of things. And sometimes you can feel like you've absolutely tried everything. But we've all been there, where you're looking at the accounts, you're looking at the cash flow, you're looking at the bank balance, and we think, I've tried everything. What else could I possibly do? But actually, there's quite a few things you could do. So we're going to talk to James here, and I know you've been through quite a journey. How long have you been on this journey of optimization and squeezing your business and growing it and scaling it in earnest?
I'm now in year three, Sally.
Year 3. Wow. So for 3 years, you've been focusing on growing your business. And just give us an idea of where you've come from and where you've got to in that period.
So when I first joined Agent Rainmaker, I was working all the hours under the sun, managing a relatively small team of staff, and it's taken me a long time to get to the position I'm in now, which is in a position that the business pretty much runs itself, and it's given me the time to focus on the larger scale growth that we're trying to do as a business.
What does that mean to you personally, being able to actually spend time working on the business as opposed to in the business? Has it made any changes to your lifestyle in any way, or your health, or you're playing more golf? I don't know. What is it you're doing now with all your spare time?
Well, I'm not really playing any golf, but I'm working probably just as much, but I'm working on the business. And I said to my fiance last night, I commented on how much my life has changed and how much our lives have changed. So we've got so much more flexibility to do what we wanted as a family. We've got time to go and do the things that we enjoy as a family together, which actually, if I'm honest with you, rarely I was able to do, not because financially we couldn't afford to do so, but actually I just didn't have the time to be able to do those things.
It's amazing, isn't it? And I wonder how many other business owners, Dawn, I know you've spoken to a lot of agents, because, myself, and those of you who don't know, Dawn and myself, we've worked together for nearly 18 years now, and we have helped over 350 agents squeeze the juice on their business and add 6 figures to their revenue. And, this is a conversation that comes up quite a lot, Dawn, isn't it? About not being able to sort of, it's almost like people get trapped in the day-to-day, not able to live their life, not able to do what they want to do. It's a common problem, isn't it?
Massively, absolutely. And James is evident to that. The difference in the James that sits before us here today, as he will know, is a very different James that we met 3 years ago. It's quiet. He's out of the business at an event, I know. Whereas the first time I met him, he was surrounded by paper and there was chaos in the background. And you do, as business owners, quite often you can get sucked into the doing the do and not working on the business and elevating yourself out of that doing the do role. But you've managed that fantastically, James. And the difference in what you're able to do now is just phenomenal.
It's interesting because I say to people, and you probably hear so many business coaches say the same thing, you've got to work on your business, not in it. But when you're there in the thick of it and someone's telling you to just let go of everything and just work on the big picture, it sounds absolutely terrifying. So James, what was the big turning point for you in starting to scale your business and get yourself out of the business? What was the light bulb moment? What was the big thing? What was the big thing that allowed you to say, okay, I'm getting out now? What was that?
Well, I think the big turning point was when I signed up with you guys. There was a reason behind that, and that was kind of a slightly separate issue. But when I was halfway through the first year, I kept going home to my fiance and saying, I haven't got time, I can't do this, I haven't got this. And you guys were making me accountable to making changes within the business. And that was the big turning point. It was the understanding point of the start of my journey, really, in terms of implementing changes to systems and processes in the business. And then you start to see the change financially, which then makes you focus on the longer term side of things.
Was it scary letting go, James? Stepping back?
Oh God, because if you're a bit of a control freak, as I am, probably as most business owners are, it is quite scary, but you have to kind of trust your staff. And if you've got a decently established business, the staff that they're working with you are good staff. They will support you and they will embrace the changes. And once you embrace the changes and move forward, you just think to yourself, why didn't I do this years ago? And that's one of the big things.
So what would you say to someone who is in the thick of it? And because I can remember one of the first conversations we had, you were doing the valuations, you were doing the viewings, you were doing everything. And even though you had staff, you were still involved in every part of the process, as so many people are. What would you say to a business owner that is still on the tools doing all those things and just cannot see how they could possibly let go of these things and get themselves even in the building now? Are you? You're out of the building. What would you say to someone in that position?
Yeah, I think if you're in that position, and I was in that position for 10, 15 years, I guess, you just can't see the wood through the trees, and all you can see is 10-hour, 12-hour days every day, hammer and tongs, just trying to pay the bills and to run the business. And the difference between being in that position and just literally thinking, well, where is the end, to being in the position that I'm in now, where I've got a visual view of where I want to be in 5-10 years, this kind of thing. You just need to kind of take that step back. But if you're that kind of person and you're feeling a little bit trapped and you're feeling that there isn't an end to this journey, then you're probably the kind of person that needs to go to AR Live and understand how you can implement changes and how you can actually move your business to the next level, because that's been a game changer for me, and it's actually been a life changer for myself and my family, and that's the biggest impact for me, really.
Would you say a big part of it then is belief change?
It is belief, but you've got to believe in yourself, but you've got to visualize getting from position A to position B. And don't get me wrong, like when I first joined with you guys and I went to AR Live the first time round, I was thinking, what the hell's going on here? But at the same time, you can see people, and you can aspire to the people that are stood on the stage and the journey that they've been through. And if you've got the enthusiasm to want to do that and you want to make that change, it's the kind of thing you need to be doing.
What was the first thing you changed? The very first thing? The
first thing I changed, really, well, aside from my my outlook towards things, was making alterations to our fee structure within the business. And that is not a be all and end all to every business, because every estate agency or letting agency business will be different. So you'll be making different changes and different tweaks and changes in different ways, but you need to make sure that it's relative to your business.
I'm going to talk to Dawn now. So just for a second, what I know you really focus on the back end, as in tenancy management. You've run a whole tenancy management team, and you have done for absolutely years. You don't even work in the tenancy management side of things. You have a team that runs that. So you've now not only moved yourself out, you've moved some of your team members out, and it's running autonomously without you. So I know tenancy management is the side of things that really sucks people in. So, and I can remember, guys, for those of you watching, I can remember a conversation with Dawn Bennett about 15 years ago, trying to get her off the tools. So she was in a very similar position to James. She wouldn't let go. Oh, if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. No one does it as good as me. And you've gone from that point to now like 2 steps up, where you're out and you've got your team out and they're getting their team out now. So how did you make that shift? What was the difference for you going from being on the tools to being off the tools, and therefore being able to optimize the business because you had the time to do so? Because that's the crux here. We can all optimize the business if we have the time, but if we're on the tools, we can't. So what was the big shift for you?
I think it's exactly what James said there. It's about what your end goal is. What is it that you want as an individual, as a business owner, as somebody in a job role? Do you want to do that job day in, day out? And being on the tools for me wasn't the job that I wanted to do day in, day out. I am a very, very big control freak. And I also am one of those people that also think nobody can do it as good as me. But if you can actually change that mindset and think, do you know what? If I can get somebody to do it as good as 95% as I do, or actually, do you know what? Open up your mind to think, actually, I might find somebody better at it than me. And many, many years ago, in my career journey, I would have hated for somebody to work for me that was better than me. But actually, I've finally realized that's what we want. That is exactly what we want. If you want to take your path on your journey on a different path, then of course you want the best people beneath you to be able to look after what you've already created. Had I still been sat in tenancy management now, I wouldn't be able to do half of the things that I've been doing over the last 5 to 10 years, actually. Launching my own branch, opening it from cold start, now coaching, presenting, and so forth. That was my aspiration. That was my goal. And I couldn't have done that until I let go. But I think one of the things that we really, really have to do is believe in the power of the people around us. If you were already established like you were, James, I know you had to take those team on the journey with you to what your visual got, where your visual goal was, because for them it was big changes that were being made. But once you get them on side and they're on that journey with you, it's actually phenomenally easy to get there. And I am so lucky. We work with loads of agents, as you say, Sally, over 350 agents over the last 8 to 10 years. And I'm really proud to say that my tenancy management team spans 70 years of working together, and is a department that is known to have high staff turnover, but we don't have that because they're actually better than me. And they are able to do the job that I and we needed them to do for that to be able to run without me.
But I'm going to take you back to the beginning, because all of that, what you've just said, is absolutely correct. But I can remember right at the beginning when we went on this journey, there was a little bit of a scurrying for the hill from some people, because not everybody wants to go on that journey with you. And this is one of the challenges that everybody finds when they start to change from we've always done it this way to we're now doing it that way, is people start scarpering. So, James, did you experience that some people just said, this is not for me, I'm out? Did you have that at all?
No, I didn't. But it does take spending a lot of time with your staff to understand the changes that you're making, and we've completely pulled the business apart and rebuilt it from the inside out. So it's dramatically different now in terms of the different departments we have and the divisions within the business. But we've done that to streamline the business, but also to take a lot of the workflow away from the staff. So we're now having the managers within the business delegating down. And I've delegated away 90%, I would say, of the things that I do, or I used to do. And they've been passed down to the managers. The managers have passed it further down themselves. Don't get me wrong, we have a much, much larger team now, but our turnover is 3 or 4 times higher. So it's a much bigger business, and it needs managing in a slightly different way. And my day-to-day is running the business rather than valuing houses all day or paying bills or dealing with complaints or whatever it might be. So it's a much, much different business now.
Interesting. What would you say are the strategies that you found most effective in optimizing your business?
Really, I think scaling the team and making the changes within the team, because then you can start to see how the workflows will start to kind of be a much more progressive rather than bogged down. We had after our third acquisition, we were just getting bogged down, and all of the staff were really struggling to deal with the day-to-day side of things. So the most effective thing we've done is actually scaling the business and just passing the workflows through.
And you talked about subdivision when I was chatting to you previously. I mean, one of the things that I find quite interesting is a lot of people still do it that we all do lettings, and everybody sort of does a bit of everything. You know, the person is doing taking the property on, finding the tenant, doing the tenancy administration, doing a bit of tenancy back end. Whereas I know you've divided it. So just talk to me a little bit about that, if you can, please.
Yeah, we have. So we've actually divided into many different sub-departments. So I've actually done the same thing only in the last few weeks with the sales division. So the sales team are working on sales valuations only at the top of the tree. We've got somebody doing sales progression, somebody doing viewings. They'll each have their own defined job roles, and the same with the letting side. Whereas the guys at the front will look after the initial marketing of a property and taking in applications, and it's then passed to the tenancy administration team to look after. So the lettings guys at the front are solely focused on getting properties onto the market and letting them, and thereafter it's passed to a different team.
Interesting. Now, Dawn, I know with your tenancy management team, me and you had differences of opinion when we first started this journey of 20 odd years ago. I used to have it that one tenancy manager did the maintenance, one tenancy manager did the rent collection, and all had different roles. And you were adamant that you thought it would be better if we had a tenancy manager with a portfolio of properties that did all the functions within that portfolio. We did argue a little while about that, and then you implemented it, and you were proven to be right. So tell me about how you structure that back end, because I think it's important in optimization that we're very streamlined with our workforce, and they're able to focus on the thing that is getting the job done, and therefore we can focus on the optimization as a result.
Yeah, so talking about optimization and time saving being one of those key strategies is when you introduce something like portfolio management. For example, a portfolio manager, let's say they're calling about a maintenance job. that in the old way of working would have been the maintenance repair guy who called the landlord that day. But that day there was also arrears on the tenancy, which would have been another staff member's job to call that tenant and landlord on that day. And then there was another issue that was dealt with by another person on that day. So what tends to happen is that you may have 3 people calling that landlord in one day to talk about different aspects of what's going on with his properties. Or it could be a different property has a different scenario. So he could be getting multiple calls from multiple people. And I just thought, actually, wouldn't the service be so much better if we went down the route of portfolio management? Firstly, from a customer service point of view, the tenancy managers get to know those landlords, they get to know those tenants, they build relationships with both. And ultimately, because of that, the tenancy conducts itself in a much more professional and what's the word I'm looking for? They all get on together. You've built that rapport. Some of our tenancy managers, they're absolutely cracking at getting the tenants to pay, getting the landlords to bend on that little more expensive quote, because they've built trust with their portfolio manager. But fundamentally, it absolutely saves time within the tenancy management department and systemizes and processes everything that tenancy manager does with each landlord and each tenant. Now, what is it that we sell? Our commodity is time. So for me, that was hugely valuable. And also, throughout working with other agents, many others have gone from doing exactly the same thing from the way that we used to do it, Sally, to the way that we do it now. And I'll share what your concerns were. But Dawn, how are you going to train them everything that they need to know? Because we used to do things in the other way. They'd come in, they'd do one thing and they'd learn that. And then we might teach them another one and they'd learn that. But actually, the training isn't an issue as long as you've got a training plan and everything is there. But it's, for me, I think we've been doing it now probably for about 10 years. Would you say, Sally?
Probably. And also the other thing to add on as well is you now have most of them home working as well, don't you? So
home working, yeah. So majority of them homework, they're hybrid. They can come to the office if they want to. They can work from home if they want to. Majority of them feel more productive from home because they don't have that office chatter. But they're actually managing around 220 properties per portfolio manager, with my top tenancy manager now managing 275 properties. And that's from the moment the tenant moves in till the tenant moves out, everything in between. However, they do not leave the office. So in terms of optimization, and again, giving us back that time, our commodity which we're selling, all of our inspections and outside visits are outsourced.
Yeah, it's important to note that, isn't it? Because the way
100%,
the role that you do, I mean, you manage properties hundreds of miles away, so it's just not feasible for you to go and do inspections, check-ins, and check-outs. But I know, as a very tight team, you did a presentation for us about 12 months ago, I think, where you were talking about how my tenancy management department added 300k to the bottom line, and it's very much about teaching them to look for opportunities, additional services, upsells, other properties they might have available, rent increases, all those sort of things, the things that we should all be doing, but actually making sure they do it. And because they're in the office, you can therefore set those targets, set those goals. Once I mean in the office, they're working 9 to 5 at their desk. You can set those targets and hold them accountable to that as well.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say that those are the things we all should be doing. But again, the amount of agents that I meet that quite often view their tenancy management team as a infrastructure team, as an infrastructure employees. They're there to follow the systems and the processes and to do the job that is required, which, let's be truthful, is very legislative driven. So it is important that their character is systemized and processes. But actually, you can turn them into a little sales dream team. And we know many agents that have done that now.
Well, you actually pay yours more for the amount of revenue they generate and for the amount of properties they manage. So they're incentivized and get more done. And they also have access to VAs to help and support them in lower level functions as well. So you've really made it easy for them to take on more properties and made it worth their while, rather than them going, no, I don't want more. So
and that's the goal. And it's really interesting. You will see those that are money motivated. There's one, as I say, 275, that they'll take on more and more and more. That's their desire. You've just got to ensure that they've got the support and the tools to be able to deliver the service.
And of course, they're not front end. You know, we have front end staff in the branches, and, you know, they do the viewings, they do the listings, they take the properties on, they collect the keys, they do the move-ins, they do all that sort of stuff. From the move-in, the tenancy managers deal with the back end, deposit returns, rent collection, rent arrears, all that sort of stuff. So it's a real nice, sweet little way of operating, and again, very scalable.
It also allows the sales department to be better as well, because I know, James, when we first met, when I was talking to you about some of what your staff roles were, there was a bit of confusion between us, because James was indicating that they were front-end staff, but actually they were doing a lot of tenancy management stuff whilst doing viewings. They were kind of a mixture of the two, weren't they, James? And that was forming part of the problem.
Yeah, my guys were doing pretty much everything when they started. So they would deal with the beginning of the tenancy all the way through, referencing, move the clients in, paperwork and so on. Then they would manage the rental, which might be 1 year, 2 year, 5 years kind of thing. Deal with the move outs and then start again. And the problem is, when you start putting all of these properties in, it was too much for them to deal with. So we had to scale it back.
But to me, that's like, because you've got salespeople that should be able to sell, you know, and when you do a disc profile on a salesperson, they're usually high D and high I, so they're chatty, dominant, and they go out and do deals. When you do a disc profile on a tenancy manager, they're high S and C, structured and systemized and compliance. And they're just the two. No, I mean, just show me a salesperson that's good with paperwork, and they're a rare breed. They are the unicorn of salespeople. And show me a tenancy manager that's a fantastic salesperson. Again, they do exist, but they're very, very rare. So when you look at a role like that, it doesn't make sense. And obviously, the number of salespersons done one excuse why they haven't done sales will be, because I've been doing the admin and the yes checks and things like that. So it is really important to separate those tasks, as you have done, James, and really make that difference. So you came to Rainmaker Live, you joined our ARX Mastermind program, and it sort of changed your life, really. What was the big thing that it gave you?
The big thing it gave me was the confidence. And I think many business owners that have relatively successful businesses will be good at what they do, and they'll be running good businesses, but they might feel a little bit trapped, or they might be in a position where they've got a decision to make, and it's which way do I go with things. And the biggest thing was the confidence that you guys gave me to make important decisions within my business to move the business forward.
What would you say the biggest challenge was?
The biggest challenge was learning to let go and have the confidence in the staff, because the staff are very good at what they do. And I think when you're trying to run a business and you're involved in every single faculty of that business, you need to understand that you've got to let go of certain things to move the business forward. And that was the biggest thing. But having the confidence to do so, I've never looked back. And now I find the slightest little thing that I used to do sometimes annoys me a little bit, because I'm thinking, this isn't me anymore. I do this. This is my job, rather than doing the day-to-day side of things. So it's understanding what you need to do and what you don't need to do to run the business in the right way.
One of the things I always talk about is, are you a letting agent or are you a business owner? What would you say you are, James?
Now I'm a business owner.
And you were before?
Well, previously I was an estate agent doing everything. Buying houses, dealing with commercial stuff, dealing with residential lettings, the whole 9 yards. But I wasn't really a business owner. I was, what would I say? I was self-employed, employed. I was employed by my business, and I was trapped in my business.
It's interesting, isn't it? I think we should do a little comparison. Who's had the most holidays this year, Dawn? What do you reckon?
Wow. I reckon James.
For those of you watching, who's the winner here between James and Dawn? Is who's had the most holidays and trips and time away? What do we reckon?
We need to use you in this countdown.
I don't count.
Lawson. It just proves the success of what we're all hoping to achieve. Because one of the things I want to say is, everybody within their business, every business owner does things for different reasons, and whatever your reason is absolutely fine. For some people, like me, it's going on holiday. For other people, it's to get to spend more time with their family because they've got young children. For other, like, I know for you, James, cycling in Mallorca, doing the things that you love. So it's different for all of us, isn't it? But holidays is certainly there on James's list, I'm sure.
So go on, James. How many times are you going away in a year, just getting on a plane, going somewhere, or going off on a trip somewhere, or doing something? If you were to guess, what was the...
Well, this year?
Yeah.
Yes.
15. It's a lot.
And James, where are you? James, where are you going on Saturday?
So I'm after I leave Telford, I'm going to Birmingham to the airport, to get
on another plane.
Yeah, we're flying to Alicante, and then I've managed to get some tickets to take my two boys to the El Clasico, which is the Real Madrid-Barcelona game. So we're traveling up to Madrid, and I'll be in Spain for another 10 days then. So it'll be good. Yeah, can't wait.
Fantastic. Well,
my little 7 trips.
Dawn, you took your game, mate. You've only got 2 trips a year. I mean, come on, that's terrible. She needs no encouragement, James, I promise you.
No, I know.
But that's what life's all about. And do you know what? That's where I take personal pleasure in helping people to, get themselves out of business, start to enjoy life a bit. We're only on this world a short time. We've got to make the most of it that we possibly can, haven't we, really? So,
indeed, yeah.
That's fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here today. Don't forget, guys, number one, if you want to optimize your business, is get yourself off the tools. All right. You've got to be a business owner, not an operator. And I know sometimes the wood for the trees, it seems really difficult. Thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you. Bye.